What's up, guys? This is Jesse with Initiate Motorsports, back with another video for you guys. So today I am going to be porting out a customer's lower manifold, lower plenum, and their upper plenum. On the lower manifold, we're just going to do a slight port. On the lower plenum, we're actually going to shave down the horns on the front two cylinders, as well as do a slight port on that one as well. And then on the upper plenum, we're just gonna fix all the casting marks, get those off of there, and then paint it with ceramic enamel. So this is something I've done to all of my cars. I've sold a couple of them to some people. And the idea behind it is that you're allowing more airflow to go into the engine. A lot of it gets held up in the stock system. They did not do a great design with the stock plenum and manifold. A lot of people like myself go ahead and port them out a little bit, as well as shave down the horns and such. So I'm gonna give you guys a nice walkthrough on this, how I do it, things to keep an eye out for, etc., etc. So we'll get right into it. So in terms of the tools you guys are gonna need, it's pretty simple. Right here you're gonna need an angle grinder, but this is the thick disc. It's really for like sanding down metal objects. It's not for cutting. And I'm gonna use this to grind down the horns just because it works a lot faster. I know angle grinders can get expensive. You can buy the Craftsman plug-in one for relatively cheap. That's the one I use. It works well enough. Then we're also gonna need a Dremel. This is a Harbor Freight General. It's like 35 bucks for the Dremel itself, and then I think 50 for the battery. We're going to be using the flap discs. Dremel, the brand, actually sells them for like 8 bucks a piece, or if you go on Amazon, you can buy a 10-pack for like, I think these are $8 as well. So I buy the 10-pack. Clearly, the Dremel brand flap discs are going to last way longer. I like to estimate the Dremel brand lasts as long as 4 or 5 of these, but even in that case, these are a better deal because you get 10 for the same price. I usually, if I'm doing an actual gasket port on the lower manifold, I like to have 2 bags. Port and gasket match on the lower plenum, again 2 bags, and then the upper plenum just 1 bag. So if you're doing all 3, you're going to want to get 5 bags of 10 each, and these are the 80 grit. That's what I like to use. These being circular allow you to really get in there more fine and allow to keep the same shape. Now, something to keep in mind, unless you have a flow bench, you're never going to be able to get these perfectly. A lot of people say they don't add horsepower, some people say they do. In my opinion, my personal estimate is that when I do the gasket match and shave down the horns and get rid of all the casting marks, I think I probably get 10 to 15 horsepower out of the whole setup. Now, clearly 10 to 15 horsepower isn't much to scoff at, but the benefit to it is that if you already have the tools, it's super cheap to get it done. So it does take quite a bit of time though. Usually on the lower manifold, I'll spend about probably 4 hours. Lower plenum like 8 hours, and then upper plenum like 2 hours. So it does take quite a bit of time, but once you do it, it looks great. The car definitely feels better. It gets way more airflow, and you can gain a little bit of horsepower. So we're gonna jump into it. The first thing today is we're gonna be grinding down the front 2 horns. So you can tell it's the front when it has this line on it. So essentially, I'm going to take the angle grinder and just grind these down probably about 5 to 6 millimeters, just to allow more airflow, because essentially when it's coming in from over here on the intake. So it comes in, it floats around. Well, most of the time, these front 4 cylinders right here get all the air. The front 2 cylinders don't get much, just the way it's designed. So a lot of people will shave down these 2 front horns. I also shave out the porous sections here on the horns, get those gone, and then usually I'll hit a light shave on the other 4 horns as well. After that, I'm going to take the flap disc and I'm going to go in here and smooth this out. Also, I'll take the angle grinder and get rid of these letters right here. It's a little tricky, but you can do it. And then we're going to take the flap disc into the actual horns, open those up a little bit. From my research, you don't really want to make these too sharp. I know that's one thing people talk about is they sit there with the flap disc and sharpen these corners up. From what I understand from internet research, you don't want to do that. You want it to have a nice kind of rounded edge almost. So I'm not going to do anything there. And then on the bottom side here, you'll notice that when this is all lined up, it's not gray right now. You'll notice you have a little bit of material in each one of the holes. And essentially what you're going to do is take that flap disc and then draw a line in there on the material and take the flap disc and just shave them down to where they're the same size as the gasket. This is called gasket matching, and it's a pretty common practice in a lot of other brands as well. On this car specifically, the guy's not planning on tuning it. He just wants to get it a little better airflow, so I'm not even going to go through a whole gasket match. I'm really just going to smoothen out the interior of the holes. And then afterwards, we're going to take that ceramic enamel and paint the underside of the plenum. This guy wants to keep the aluminum color, which they do offer in a ceramic enamel. So I'll go ahead and paint it up and make it look nice and pretty. And that ceramic enamel, it helps keep intake air temperatures down. So that's the benefit to doing that. But like I said, guys, we're going to get right into it with shaving the horns. All right, my last thing to say that you guys want to invest in is I have an actual respirator. When you're grinding on these guys, so much little fine aluminum dust is being kicked into the air, you'll breathe it in and your nostrils will be literally full of metal. So I suggest putting on some sort of mask, protect yourself, keep that shit out of your lungs. I'm sure it's not good for you. So we're going to go right into it. So you can already see it's starting to get shaved down to where this is going to be flat on the top. So we still got quite a bit more material to take off, but you can see that compared to the other side. So then what I like to do is actually I like to kind of go back and forth with the top of the angle blade and just flatten it out starting over here, come back this way. You'll kind of get into a groove where you know what the level is on there. So just keep grinding. Woo! Alright guys, so I've got this one pretty much done. So just to show you how much lower it sits compared to this side. So you can see it absolutely sits quite a bit lower. So I only took off probably 5 or 6 millimeters off the top, and then I took the angle grinder and took all of the casting shit out of here. So now once you do that and you get it to this shape and look, now we're going to go over it with the flap wheel. Just smooth it all out, make it look nice and pretty, and then we'll go to the other side. Alright, so now after I've hit it with the flap wheel, you can see it's a whole lot smoother. This is about where I like to leave it. When I first started doing these, I would end up polishing this just to make it real nice and smooth and flat. Over time though, I got some research that basically showed that if you smooth this out too much, then moisture will stick to it on its way into the engine. So at this point nowadays, I just leave it like that. I know it doesn't look as pretty, but that's what functions best, and you know, no one's going to be looking at this thing when it's on the car. So now you can see one side that's done, one side that's not. So yeah, so now we are going to go ahead and start working on the other side. Alright guys, so I got the other side finished here, as you can see. So again, both the front 2 cylinders, you can tell it's front by this line here that heads to the oil catch can or to the PCV. But yeah, these 2 are done. I'm going to take a break for tonight. Tomorrow I'm going to go ahead and do these 4 cylinders and then start working on the inside. So we'll see you tomorrow. So today what we're going to do is we're going to take the grinder and get rid of those letters in there. I don't know if you can see them. Get rid of those letters just to not impede any airflow, and then we're going to go ahead and just grind down the top. So I'm not really taking any real material off. What I do on most of these is I'll end up just grinding down the top a little bit. Still, you want a lot more airflow getting to the front 2 cylinders, so that's the important part. I'll grind them down just to smooth them off with the Dremel. And then we're going to go ahead and get inside here and start working on opening these ports up just a little bit. Like I said, on most cars that I do, I port these out probably about 5 millimeters. But on this car, I'm just going to port it out a millimeter or 2 just because the guy doesn't want to tune it. He just wants it to run a little better, so that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to get to work on that. As you can see, I grinded down all of the horns. They're all grinded down. You can see the difference between the front horns versus the far 2. You can definitely see there's a drop in there. we go to this side, same thing. Yeah, so the next thing is I'm gonna take the grinder, and you kind of gotta be careful when you stick it down in here for these letters. It likes to kind of bump around and then grab a bunch of other stuff, and you don't want to grind up. This is what we're looking at right now. So as you can see, ground down the letters in there. You got to be really careful with this bit on there, because just a little too leaned in or out and you're hitting the horn. So now the next step, we are going to be taking the flap wheels and we're going to be boring out these holes right here. I'm also going to hit that spot right there where I grinded off the letters, smooth all of that out, get rid of this porous material in here on both sides. So we're going to start right now. I finished off sanding inside of there on both sides, and then went in and ported out the holes just a little bit. It's kind of hard to see. Alright guys, I am back today, and today I'm going to start porting out the lower plenum holes down here. So we will go ahead and start working on that. Alright guys, so that was the end of it. Essentially, like I said, just took that flap wheel right there, buried it down in here as deep as you can go in there. You kind of gotta come in at an angle. Usually when I'm doing this, when I'm actually porting these out, I take a set of calipers and measure them just to make sure they're all relatively even. I also always go back with the sander and then hit just a nice smooth brush across with a really fine grit. So I used a 320 with my sander, and then just try to keep it even. You don't want to bury it down in one spot and warp this. It's got to still be flat as can be. All right, so as you can see here, we got part 1 with the lower plenum, part 2 with the lower manifold, and part 3 with the upper plenum. So all 3 of these are done and ready to go. So the next step before we paint, we really got to deep clean these. I have a little baby bottle cleaner that I use, and it sticks in there. It's got bristles on it, so it's gets it real clean. I use Dawn dish soap and really try to focus on the exterior of these parts as well, because they're super dirty and oily. You want to get them nice and clean before you send some primer on them. Alright guys, so we are in my bathroom. We're going to go ahead and lay some Dawn dish soap all over these guys with some hot water. Like I said, I use this little brush for baby bottles because it has this little piece down here. It hooks in underneath. This thing is good for getting into all those thread holes. And then this side just good for the bigger cylinder holes. Gives you a lot of versatility to get them cleaned out. So we'll start cleaning them now. So I'm going to hit these spots real quick and just get them finished up. And I always spray brake clean last just to get any left materials off of there. So for the lower plenum, the way I tape this is I just run big pieces of tape all the way over the top of it, all the way, and then take my knife and cut around the edge. The reason why you want to do it this way is because obviously you're not painting this side. It's going to be flipped over upside down, but you'll see these obviously sit up higher. So if you just flip it upside down, start spraying, you're trying to get this lip, because that's what you'll see. You're going to end up getting paint down in the holes for the cylinders. You don't want to do that. So yeah, I'm going to get taping this thing. So we are going to first lay some primer down. For primer, I like VHT brand primer. This seems to work really well. And then I've always had a lot of luck with Duplicolor's caliper paint. I know it's caliper and not engine. It does not lay nearly as good as the caliper paint does. The caliper paint just leaves a really nice smooth finish, almost like it was powder coated, so that's what I like. So I'm gonna get these painted up. I only really lay 1 coat of primer on these guys. So now I have the upper plenum and the lower plenum here. We're gonna hit these guys. Alright, on the lower plenum, you're going to want to make sure you flip it over. You've got to be really careful, but if you can get underneath and kind of pizza pie it, you can then flip it if I'm careful enough. Alright, let's see, how do I do this? I got to remember this guy. There we go. So yeah, you're going to want to go ahead and flip it so you can make sure this whole rim all the way around the side is done right. Then you're going to want to grab it by the two studs here so you can spin it around. So again, we're just going to let these dry here for a minute, and then I'll start actually laying paint on, probably about 15-20 minutes. So we'll get started with this. Remember to shake the ever-loving shit out of your can. Looks like I got them both pretty good. You can see it's a pretty good looking aluminum, honestly. And like I said, the way it dries is really impressive. It's so thick that it almost reminds me of a powder coat. These are pretty much dry at this point. I really like that color too. It looks almost factory, but a little cleaned up. Kind of hard to see. Maybe you get a better view on it from this angle. So yeah, so we got these done. We're gonna set these off. I always give it overnight to let them dry before I go ripping tape off, because you don't want to rip it off and then kind of peel some of the tape off with it. So I'm just gonna set these over to the side, let them dry overnight. I always at the end look them over pretty in depth, and what I'll do is I'll spray some of the spray paint into cap and use a teeny tiny little paintbrush and just hit spots that kind of got jacked up. It's very common for that to happen. And then once I'm done, I rip the tape off. Pretty much every single time the tape leaves a little bit of paint here on the rim, so I'll just go by with some sandpaper and just clean it all up. That is the end of the video, guys. I really appreciate it. If you can please like the video, please comment on the video, please let me know if you guys have ever done this. If there's anything you did differently, I'd like to know. And please subscribe to the video. Really makes a huge difference for me. Super small. Any subscriber counts. You all matter. So really appreciate you guys watching the video. I'll see you next time. Thanks.